Parikshit Luthra is also standing by here at the Bharat Mandapam. Parikshit, plenty of conversations on, and of course there are many working groups that have been putting together recommendations on a whole host of issues. You've got somebody with you. Take us through what they're focusing on.
Yes, Shireen, the first session of the day with the theme One Earth has kicked off. The Prime Minister has urged the world to move from global trust deficit to global trust, and he has said that we must look at concrete solutions to terrorism, climate change, supply chains and cyber security, and there needs to be a human-centric approach to all the challenges that we face today. But we've got two very interesting guests with us right now. Dr. Naylor, Dr. Tristen Naylor, University of Cambridge, and Manas Chawla, CEO of London Politica. They're a part of the think tank, which is the G20 Research Group. This is an independent group which works out of the University of Toronto. They've got their desk here. They've got their experts sitting together, going through every meeting that is taking place. And what they also do, which is very interesting, they study the implementation of every G20 declaration communique year after year. How much has every communique actually been able to deliver for? So let me begin with you, Dr. Naylor. Give me a sense of the kind of issues that you're really looking out for. Today, we're talking about the Global South. We're looking at debt restructuring, reform of multilateral development banks, climate financing. So what are some of the deliverables you're looking out for most closely, where we could make most progress?
So I think that there are two sets of issues. There are those being discussed in the room with the leaders, those that are formally on the agenda, those issues that you've brought up. And then there are the issues that are on the sidelines, those that are taking place on the margins of this summit that we've seen the bilaterals. I'm mostly interested on what happens outside of the room. We had the bilateral between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi last night that was very, very significant. They agreed to a range of things, everything from climate finance to digital infrastructure to security agreements. And then, of course, as well, the war in Ukraine is not formally on the agenda, and yet it is at the forefront of maybe not everybody's, but certainly most people's minds here. And so that's another thing that I'm paying very, very close attention to this weekend.
I'd like to ask you, every G20 has ended with a joint declaration. If this meeting does not end with a joint declaration or a communique because of differences over the war, will it be a failure in a way?
I don't think so. It certainly will be a significant summit in that it is the first one ever not to have a communique. I'm holding out hope. I'm more optimistic than I was even just a day ago about the possibility of a communique. But look, let's face it, to most people in most of the world, whether or not this meeting of leaders after a weekend ends in a communique, doesn't much matter to them. It does matter, certainly for the host, to be able to say, look, we accomplished this, and it does matter for the leaders who are here. But I'm optimistic. I think they might be able to pull it out of the bag.
Yeah, right. You're as optimistic as all our leaders are at the moment. But Manas, if I were to ask you, over the years, since the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, how much have G20 summits actually achieved? How much have they delivered in terms of putting the global economy on track and making it resilient in terms of supply chains?
Absolutely. I mean, the G20 first met right after the 2008 financial crisis. And when it was first started, it was very much a community of the world's largest nations dedicated to solving problems with the financial and economic architecture of the world. But since then, their mandate has widened significantly. And we've seen that over the years, particularly as they came together to address problems associated with the COVID pandemic, as they now address problems routinely that are political. And as we saw how the issue of the war in Ukraine was a centerpiece of the agenda, both in Bali last year and very much will be on the sidelines of discussions this year as well. So we've seen this widening of their agenda and their mandate. I saw something very interesting at the media briefing yesterday when the G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant made a point to bring it back to the G20's initial purpose about it being fundamentally an economic organization and dedicated to solving those issues, particularly because India's finding it very difficult to be the bridge builder it wants to be between the West and the East to solve the sort of political contentions over Ukraine, and perhaps narrowing the agenda is one way to resolve that.
Right. My one final question to you, Dr. Naylor. From Bali to New Delhi, what is the unfinished agenda, according to you? What has not changed? Of course, the war has worsened. That has not changed. The supply chains continue to be disrupted in one sort of way. The Black Sea Grain Initiative, that's off. So what do you think is the unfinished agenda from Bali?
I wish I could say that there weren't so many things, but there are so many things. Whether it's progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, whether it is progress on climate change and climate change mitigation, there is so much unfinished business. And, you mentioned the war in Ukraine. The war is still there, but actually things have changed. Things have gotten worse. Both the leaders of China and Russia have said that they can't agree to the language that they agreed to last year. So on that front, we've actually gone backwards.
All right, so we've gone backwards on the Ukraine-Russia war, and that is what Russia and China want. They want complete dilution of the communique, the Bali communique, and they are countries like Russia and China who want that text to be removed altogether. So let's see how India can have some sort of consensus. But this will be an important day today. We have to see whether the African Union is included into the G20. There will be the launch of the Global Biofuel Alliance as well, Shireen. So we will be watching out for all those developments. With that, it's back to you.
Oh, absolutely. We will be tracking all of those developments, as you point out. That Biofuel Alliance is going to be announced as part of the proceedings later this evening.